before the first pyramids rose in Egypt, before Stonehenge crowned the green plains of Britain, there was Göbekli Tepe, a forgotten mountain sanctuary older than history itself. High on a barren hill in southeastern Turkey, massive T-shaped stones stand in circles, some carved with animals no longer seen, others whispering of gods long vanished. No homes, no tools, no traces of daily life. Yet someone thousands of years ago hauled 10-ton pillars, aligned them with the stars, and buried them intentionally in silence. Who were these builders? Hunters, shamans, priests of a vanished faith? And why did they raise the world's first temple, then hide it beneath the earth? Göbekli Tepe challenges everything we thought we knew about civilization, about religion, about ourselves. Not just a place, but a question, carved in stone, waiting to be answered. They say civilization began with farming, but Göbekli Tepe says otherwise. Built over 11,000 years ago, before pottery, before metal, before cities, before written words. It wasn't a place to live. It was a place to believe. 12-ton stones arranged in sacred circles, buried and rebuilt again and again for over 1,000 years. Not a village, not a fortress, but a sanctuary. One that predated everything we thought we knew about human society. Who taught them to build like this? How did hunter-gatherers, with no wheels and no beasts of burden, raise monuments that rival the ambition of empires? The carvings, they weren't just decoration. They told stories. They spoke of scorpions, lions, vultures, and something else. A headless human figure flanked by beasts, a possible myth, or a memory of violence, sacrifice, or gods. Göbekli Tepe was not isolated. Clues now show that similar sites existed, hidden beneath Turkish soil, still sleeping. This wasn't an accident. It was a movement. Something happened at the dawn of the Holocene. A surge of faith, a need to worship, a mystery that pulled people together long before the birth of a civilization. But then, something changed. Göbekli Tepe was suddenly abandoned. Not destroyed, not forgotten, just buried, deliberately entombed beneath tons of earth, as if the builders themselves wanted it hidden from the world. Why? Were they protecting it? Or were they trying to forget? No war, no disaster, no signs of conquest, only silence, and sand, and secrets. When the site was rediscovered in the 1990s, it shattered everything archaeologists thought they knew about the origins of civilization. Göbekli Tepe forced a question onto history. What came first, faith or farming? Did humans gather to plant crops, or did they gather to pray? This forgotten sanctuary suggests something radical. That belief may have been the first blueprint of civilization. But then something deeper was happening beneath the earth. While the site lay hidden, life around it changed forever. The last ice age was ending. Humans began to settle, to farm, to build villages. But Göbekli Tepe remained buried, a silent monument to a time before cities, a reminder that faith came first. It was not the rise of agriculture, but the rise of belief that shaped human history. For thousands of years, this place whispered secrets in stone, echoing the hopes and fears of people long gone. Today, we are only beginning to understand how Göbekli Tepe rewrites the story of civilization. It wasn't just the size, it was the intention. Göbekli Tepe was designed for something greater than survival. It was a gathering place, a temple of stone in a world of forests and fear. The pillars weren't random. They were placed with purpose, aligned to the stars, to seasons, to stories only the sky could tell. These were not just stones, they were symbols. And every carving, a fox, a scorpion, a vulture, meant something sacred. They weren't decorating, they were documenting, etching myths into stone so that memory could survive longer than man. It was here that humanity began to reach for the divine. Not through fire, not through war, but through meaning. Göbekli Tepe was an altar, raised by hands that had never built cities, never forged metal, never written a word. And yet, they built a monument that still speaks across 12,000 years. Not with sound, but with silence. They came with no blueprints, only belief. The tools were primitive, flint chisels, stone hammers, wooden levers. But the vision, it was cosmic. Each pillar was carved, lifted, and placed by hands that believed they were shaping the sacred. There was no writing to guide them, no metal to aid them, no beast to bear the weight. And yet, they moved 12-ton stones across rugged terrain. Not once, but again and again for centuries. They didn't live here, but they kept coming back. To build, to bury, to begin again. Göbekli Tepe wasn't a city that grew. It was a shrine that endured. A calendar carved in stone. A compass of myth and memory. They left no graves, no names, no idols of kings or war, only stone and symbols and silence. But in that silence, echoes. Hints of a story carved not in words, but in symbols that still whisper. A vulture standing tall, wings outspread. A scorpion near a circle. A headless man beneath twin lions. Each image, a sentence in a language we've never heard, yet somehow feel we understand. This was not random. These were messages, myths, warnings, memories etched deep into limestone to outlast the flesh. They carved their cosmos into stone. Not just what they saw, but what they feared, what they worshipped, what they remembered. There was no alphabet, no scrolls, no scribes, just symbols. A circle could be the sun, or the cycle of death. A predator might be a god, or a guardian, or a warning. Meaning layered on meaning, encrypted in limestone. We search for grammar in these carvings, but maybe they were meant to bypass language, to speak straight to the soul. We may never translate their symbols, but we feel their weight. A silent conversation across 12,000 years. A whisper from a world before gods had names. These stones, they weren't built to impress. They were built to remember. Built to endure storms, wars, plague, and time itself. And still, they stand. Like questions carved into the earth. Like prayers written in shadow. Waiting. They say the past is gone. But here, it lingers. Not in ruins, not in ashes, but in order, in purpose. Stone circles aligned with the stars like calendars made not for crops, but for ceremonies. Each pillar facing another, as if speaking. Each carving facing the sun, as if waiting for something to return. Göbekli Tepe was not just built, it was designed. And whoever designed it was looking up. They weren't just carving animals, they were mapping something. Something they saw, something they feared, or something they worshipped. The scorpion and the vulture weren't decorations. They were signs, markers of seasons, of danger, or of gods walking among men. Göbekli Tepe was a story etched in stone, but the story wasn't finished. Because as the centuries passed, they returned again and again, to rebuild, to rebury, to remember. Until one day, they didn't. We don't know why they stopped. Was it drought, migration, or something darker, war, disease, or disillusionment, they seal the site with care, stone on stone, layer on layer, as if to protect it, or to bury a secret too powerful to leave exposed. For thousands of years, Göbekli Tepe slept beneath the earth. The wind forgot it, the rain rolled over it, and time moved on, until a farmer's plow struck stone, and the past began to whisper again. What they left behind wasn't just stone circles or carvings, it was a question buried in dust and time, one that trembles beneath every excavation. Did we build civilization because we needed to eat, or because we needed to believe? They say the Neolithic Revolution was about wheat, about fire, about farming. But Göbekli Tepe tells a different story. A story not of survival, but of meaning. Maybe we didn't settle to grow food. Maybe we grew food so we could stay and worship. To return again and again to these circles of stone, as if orbiting a truth too vast to name. Göbekli Tepe doesn't answer every question, but it reminds us of something older than memory. That long before we built cities or empires, we built altars. And maybe that's the most human thing of all. They left no names, no kings, no empires carved in stone, only symbols, only stories etched in silence. But maybe that's what makes them eternal. Because when the dust of empire settles and the noise of history fades, it's the questions that remain. Why did they come here? What did they see? And what truth were they trying to preserve in these stones? But maybe that's the point. Göbekli Tepe was never meant to explain everything. It was built to remind us that not everything can be explained. That before cities and kings, before scripture and state, there was mystery, there was wonder. There were questions that needed no answers, only awe. And that somewhere, deep in the roots of civilization, our ancestors left behind a sacred silence. Not to be solved, but to be remembered. Somewhere beneath layers of earth and centuries of forgetting, they left us something timeless. Not a message in words, but a monument to wonder. Not instructions, but inspiration. Göbekli Tepe is not just a ruin. It is a reminder that long before empires rose and fell, before pyramids pierced the sky, or temples were carved in stone, humanity paused to ask, who are we? Why are we here? What lies beyond? And they answered not with conquest or coin, but with carving. Not with politics or power, but with purpose. They gathered not to rule, but to revere. Before civilization conquered the earth, faith had already conquered the heart. And though their names are lost, their legacy remains. Etched in stone, buried in silence, and echoing still, in the questions we ask, in the stars we study, in the myths we remember. We may never know exactly who they were, but maybe, just maybe, they were us. This was not just a structure, it was a symbol, a whisper from the dawn of time, calling across ages, reminding us, before cities, before kings, before even writing, we believed. And maybe, Juan, the belief is what made us human. If these stories moved you, then help us bring more of them back to life. Subscribe to Lost Thrones, like, share, and keep the fire of history burning.